Hey everyone, how's it going? It's been a week, hasn't it? It's only Wednesday, and it's been a week. So I hope you guys are doing great and following the 3H's of the channel. And in this video, aliens in Australia, a Dogman sighting from the 1990s, and East Texas, plus more. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, pull up a stump with me, and let's get into it. Thank you for watching. This is something that happened when I was 17 years old. I was alone in rural Australia. I was at my dad's house. My dad happened to be away overnight for work. It was a warm night, dead still. There was no moon. I was sitting there watching movies at around 11 p.m. I get up. I go to the kitchen to get a snack. And as I'm walking back to the couch, out of the corner of my eye, I see this figure standing right at the sliding door, looking through the glass, dead at me. It looks like what I now know to be 100% a gray alien. It had huge, black almond-shaped eyes and gray skin. It had a very slender body, long, spindly fingers. It was around 5 feet tall, maybe a little more. I get startled. I start yelling at it, like it was a wild animal, trying to shoo it away, almost. I just stand there staring at it for 10 seconds, and suddenly, everything goes black. I wake up, lying on a deck chair, outside. It's still dark. I almost immediately puke. I have a splitting headache. The glass door is wide open. I did not open it. I trudge back inside and look at the clock in the kitchen. It's 4 in the morning. I go to my room and collapse onto my bed. Later that morning, my dad wakes me up. He jokes about me just lying there on the bed, looking like I have a massive hangover. I can't bring myself to tell him what actually happened that night. I live in a small city in northern Mexico. The oldest part of my city is claimed to be territory of witches and nahuale. For those who don't know, those are Mexican animal shapeshifters, and previous to that, it was Apache territory. The area during this time comprised of at most 10 families. As decades passed, more families would move in, but essentially, until the 1990s, a lot of people living there were from a very small pool of families. Kids would grow up and build homes not that far away from the rest of the family. And one of those families was my mom's side. The story begins with my great-grandma's sister, who, unlike the rest of my family that was Catholic, Christian, or Abrahamic in general, was known to be a witch. The family rumor states that she became a Satanist since the 30s, not long after, extremely rich. It was suspected that she had done something with her own sons since they were kids and raised to be witches themselves. By the 1950s, her own sons also became rich, but all of them died in mysterious ways not 10 years later. In 1980, my grandma, 29, was summoned by her great aunt. She said she needed the youngest adult in the family. My grandma's sisters didn't count, since they hadn't had kids of their own yet, and thus weren't actually adults. Grandma decides to go help the old woman, which by that time she describes as grotesquely deformed due to arthritis, morbidly obese, with an awful stench and asthma. Accompanying the great aunt was a shaman, who gave my grandma a silver ring and told her to put it on and never take it off, no matter what. Days passed, and things got weird. For example, during the mornings, the family would wake up to notice small lumps of salt and dirt surrounding the house, which, by the way, was still close to the rest of the family in that same area of the city. My grandpa, who came from another town, bought a big empty lot and spent the next decades building a house. It was the biggest area that belonged to anyone in the family, and it was said that my great aunt had buried her treasure there. Another night, my mom and my uncle said they heard Apache Indian ghosts dancing in the backyard. This kept happening until one night where my grandma noticed that the ring was turning black and staining her finger. She was guessing that the ring was just cheap, and then she decided to take it off to inspect her finger. At that very same time, my uncle, who was taking a shower, suddenly heard someone slam the bathroom window. My mom, who was in the backyard playing, heard it too, but said there was no one on the other side. And again, almost at the same time, from the street, someone yelled out what in English would be, "The work is done." My grandpa came running to kick someone's ass, but there was no one around. About 15 minutes later, people from the neighborhood came to tell my grandma about the great aunt's demise. I don't know if there's still witches there, but it's hard to imagine considering how much that neighborhood has changed in the last 30 years. I work as an EMS, and this is something that happened late at night. I get called out into these small suburbs because some dude was found bleeding out by a convenience store clerk. I get there on time. The dude is lucid, but is trying desperately to crawl away. I suspect he's on something. I apprehend him, and I get him on a stretcher to get him to the emergency room. His legs are covered in cuts. He's bleeding heavily. It's very hard to tell what they were caused by. We get him cleaned up. The cuts are clearly human teeth bites. He's missing chunks of flesh too. These bites went deep down into the muscle. So skip ahead after the dude's getting stitched up. Police interview him because the clerk had reported it as an assault, but the assailant had left. I decided to eavesdrop because I'm really curious as to what happened to this guy. Apparently the dude said that he was meeting up with his girlfriend behind the store. Apparently she was acting normal and then started freaking out. She threw up a lot of blood and then managed to somehow wrestle him to the ground and ripped his pants off and then started biting his legs before running off after the clerk showed up. I think, what the hell? The cops believe him, but they can't find his girlfriend. There's a missing persons case filed for his girlfriend. The dude doesn't press charges. Paranormal or drugs or something else. It's pretty scary. When I was a kid, back in the 1990s, my two best friends' dad was followed by shadow men, poltergeists, and other paranormal activity that was very common among them. We lived in a trailer park. We were huge into wrestling, the Attitude Era, the WWF. Awesome. As you can imagine, we were quite poor as well. I found a mattress out of a dumpster, and I put it behind a shed, and we would use it as a wrestling mat. A new girl moved in that day, just a few houses down. She told us to come to her window at midnight, and I thought, score, wrestling, and hanging out at the back of the house at midnight with a girl. Let's do this. So, I start walking on the back sides of the trailers toward her place. There's three of us, myself and my two best friends. As we get to the corner of the short side of the trailer, we bump into something. We all are very startled, even what we bumped into. We stared at each other for a few seconds, and in that time, 100 things ran through our heads. Its skin was pale gray, and had blue, milky eyes, and hair just like Golem from Lord of the Rings. It was gray and straggly. One yells, "Punch it." The other one says, "No, it's the kid down the street's dad pranking us." I look down and I see a dog's body. I think, this is definitely not that guy's dad pranking us. I look down further. Human hands and feet attached to what looked like a Doberman pinscher body. Short, black shiny fur. You can see its ribs. It's very skinny. Definitely not a person, especially not someone's dad. My buddy swears that he saw a spiked ball tail, but I figure it could have just been fur. He was a bit further back and had a different angle around the corner though. It growls, a growl that sounds like a human voice with an animal's growl underneath of it. I yell, "Holy shit." That was all I could get out. We book it around a corner and run inside. In our fear, we ran inside a random trailer, which happened to be the guy's trailer that we thought was the one pranking us. All that we can get out is that it's a demon. This thing is physical, not incorporeal. I've always wondered what this thing was, as you can imagine, but I have no doubt that if we had stayed there with it, it would have attacked us. And this thing, it's like it wasn't like you would see a werewolf or a dogman really. It looked almost like a chimera. It may not have been a dog's body per se, but it made me think of a Doberman or Rottweiler. Short, shiny black fur, but a human head, hands and feet. The face looked rotted almost, like it had pits and cuts all in it. The eyes were clouded over, and like I said, my buddy says he saw that it had a tail with a spiked ball on the end, but due to the angle of the trailer corner, I didn't see that. He was slightly to my left and a few feet back. His brother was the same distance and spacing as he was from me. What the hell did we see? Was it a dogman? So this isn't my story, but I'll be telling it from the point of view of the person who told me. It's the summertime, 2008. I just graduated in 2007, and I was living with a couple of friends. We decided to go camping to celebrate my 1-year graduation. My friends joined me, Seth and Amanda. They were dating at the time. The truck was full of camping gear, and we were going deep into the East Texas woods. It's a 3-hour drive, so it was quite boring. Finally, we get there. We set up camp. The first night is wholly and totally uneventful. We had a fire, cooked some food, smoked some weed. I was all good. So fast forward to that second night. We spent the whole day hiking around the area, exploring and doing friend stuff. All of us were tired. I crawled into my personal tent. Seth and Amanda disappear for some alone time. You can guess what they were doing. And then suddenly, I hear screams. At first, I think, oh, Seth must be doing a good job. But then a couple seconds later, both of them run back into camp. Man, get the F up now. Something is out there. I come out, asking what happened. Something was moving in the bushes, and it screamed at us. I don't know what it was, but it didn't sound human. I tell them that it's just a fox. I tell them vixens scream like that. They start to calm down. I get up and turn on the truck for a bit to listen to music. Everything is chill. Everyone's calmed down now. I turn off the truck and go back to my tent. It's like 2:30 a.m. now. I'm exhausted beyond belief. I pass out. This is where it all gets weird, and neither Seth nor Amanda can explain this. The next morning, Seth is shaking me awake. He looks super worried. I'm thinking, oh my God, let me sleep. He says, "Man, someone broke into your truck last night." I'm instantly awake, shotgun in hand. All 4 doors on my truck are open. The interior is full of mud and grass. I look around for footprints, but there's nothing there at all. Seth says, "Did you not hear anything last night?" I say, "No, not at all. Did you?" He said that Amanda woke him up because she saw lights from the cab. She figured that I was up smoking. I freak out a little bit. I decide that our last night there, we would all just stay up all night. We spend the whole day looking around the camp for signs of an intruder. Nothing. The whole day, we were really tense and nervous and didn't really talk about our plan to stay up. We took naps around 6 p.m. and woke up just around 8:30, just as the sun went down. So, on to Operation Night Watch. There's nothing going on. We're all in Seth's big tent. There, smoking. It's about 1 a.m. I hear the same scream as the other night. Amanda turns on the waterworks, silently crying and saying that we should leave. I say, hell no, I want to scare whoever this is for screwing up my truck. The screams go on and on for over an hour. Finally, they stop. Seth and I load the shotguns and step outside the tents. We put tons of grass and stuff on the fire and turn on our flashlights. We can see maybe like 20 yards around the campsite. Seth points and tells me to look. I see eyes peering from the woods. I fire a warning shot and say to get the F away from our campsite in a loud voice. It screams and takes off into the woods. Immediately, I'm like, no, I'm not doing this anymore. I say that we're leaving. I start throwing stuff in the truck, and I add more grass and cardboard and stuff, trash, to the fire so we can see. It's about 3 a.m. We're 80% packed. It's just the tents left. Amanda is in the truck having a full-blown panic attack. The screaming begins again, but this time a little further away. At this point, it was engage light speed. We're just throwing everything into the bed of the truck. The screams are progressively getting closer. I panic and fire a shot in its direction. If anyone has ever used a cutting torch, you know that sharp, hot metal smell. It starts smelling like that, plus moldy food. I gag a couple times and almost puke. I'm about to get in the truck, putting water on the fire. I look up from the fire, and I see the eyes in the fading light. It's less than 15 yards from me. I freak out. My shotgun is back in the truck. I run as fast as I can and jump into the truck. I do a 3-point turn. The truck is now facing the road that we drove up. And this is the part where I lose people. I shit you not. This thing was visible from the waist up and was standing off the road. It had antlers, like a buck. It stood extremely tall, and it had massive shoulders. I couldn't really see the head because of the shadows, but the body looked like it was covered in fur. It may have just been my imagination, I don't know, but Seth and Amanda freaked out and later on refused to go back and talk about that trip. After I moved out, they deleted me off Facebook, and they won't answer my texts or calls. So, what'd you think of those? Let me know which one was your favorite one down in the comments. Do you have one of your own? As always, I have an email and a Patreon and a PayPal and all that stuff in the description below if you want to donate to the channel or send your story in. And if you did like the video, then be sure to like and subscribe. And I was talking to some family the other week, and we were talking about just regular things that family talk about. And then of course we get on to that, part of the conversation where it steers kind of in the direction of creepy stuff. But mostly this wasn't about like seeing weird things in the woods or whatever. It was like, it's schools. schools that we've been to or places we went to college or whatever having like weird phenomenon just happen, and it's just kind of a commonplace that everybody accepts. One in particular was mentioned about a school that's not there anymore, but when it was there, it was pretty creepy inside. There was any number of stories about this school, but one in particular was supposedly the ghost of a former teacher or principal or some role like that. But it was always said that after she had died in the 1950s or the 1960s, that she just kind of stuck around all those years. So this particular person who experienced this, they were in detention, as they normally were after school that year, and they're walking by these old classrooms that aren't really in use anymore, and they notice it's weird because there's no desks in them, but in this school, and I've personally been to this school so I would know too, there's always desks just in case, you need an extra classroom for something. I assume it's the same everywhere, but the desks were gone. So she thinks this is weird, and being a snoopy teenager, she looks in the window of the door, and all the desks are on the ceiling, and all the books that were in the classroom or on bookshelves were all out and all over the floor. And then the hair on her arm and the hair on the back of her neck began to stand up, like static. And then she saw this said teacher in the corner of the room, staring at her, kind of laughing, as if the whole situation was funny. And then it was like a light turned on. Like, whenever you're watching a movie and then someone turns the light on and it's like that shock to your eyes. That happened. And there was a huge bang. And suddenly, everything's back to normal. And she said that after that, she went home. And surprisingly, she didn't have any detentions after that for the rest of the year, which I can imagine not. I wouldn't want to be there during that either. But yeah, I just thought that story was cool, and I thought that I would share it with you. And maybe sometime I'll do like a local legends kind of video, which would be pretty cool too, I think, because everywhere has those. So with that, I will see you in the next video. Thank you for pulling up a stump, and thank you for watching. Have a good week.